process that we're beginning here. Most of us on this call have been victimized in one way or another by the justice system. And in an attempt to assert our needs for justice, we have hired new attorneys, we've gone pro se, we've filed appeals, we filed recusal of the judges, we've gone to law enforcement, and for most of us, these processes have not been fruitful at all. And the problem, as I see it, is that we really do not have a functioning justice system. We have a charade of a justice system, of laws that are not being enforced, and we are now basically in a situation where justice, too, has become politicized. So it's not so much the merits of your case, it's not so much, let's see here, it should be, okay, it's not so much the merits of your case, it's not the evidence that you have, it is who you are, number one, and also what the issue is about. And as we know, there has been a great attack on the wealth of this generation. It has happened through inheritance proceedings, it happened through foreclosure proceedings, and so what we're trying to do here is to talk about a method of research that will step outside of the box. So we're not actually engaging the court. We're not engaging the legal system. What we're doing is looking at it and researching it, particularly relevant to the judges and acts of potential money laundering. So basically, the perception is that if we have a judge who is an esteemed member of the legal community, an honor person who is regularly violating the law, violating our rights, and in many cases violating the U.S. Constitution, then they're going to be paid for this. And they're going to be paid above and beyond their judge's salary because they are doing really exceptional work here for a system that is not pledged really anymore to upholding our rights. So, so what we're going to be looking at is under the table monies. Now, there are basically a couple of ways. Well, there's 2 or 3 ways that I know of that you can pay somebody off and have it be sort of hopefully off the record. One way is just to give somebody a big envelope of cash. Now, that turned out to be a big problem for Brian Mulroney, who was the former Prime Minister of Canada, because he was caught receiving that big envelope full of cash. And there's also the question then, once you get it, what do you do with it? If you put it into your bank account, you put more than $10,000 into your bank account at one time, flags are raised there as well. So what we're going to be looking at specifically today has to do with laundering, bribes and payoffs through mortgages, through property loans. And I kind of stumbled upon this a number of years ago. I was writing for the San Bernardino County Sentinel, and I was just fascinated by the head probate judge, who was James Michael Welch. And he was making decisions that just were so out of the box in terms of the law, people's rights. It was incredible to me. And so I wanted to find out everything I could about Welch. I wanted to find out, where he was from, what school he went to. At one point, I looked him up on the grantor-grantee index, which is where the property is. And I saw that he was taking out a number of loans on a property that he'd actually had been passed down through his family. And he had full title to the property. And I thought, wow, that's kind of strange. Why is he taking out all these loans? And I thought I'd check out some of the other judges in the area, and that's when the light bulb went off. Because some of these judges were laundering over $1 million a year through their property. And based on some things I already knew about dirty loans. My father, who was a reporter, had actually reported on a dirty loan made by Howard Hughes to Richard Nixon's brother, Donald, and this was during the time when Dick Nixon was running for the California gubernatorial seat. And my father wrote an article about this loan that was subsequently published in the Reporter magazine. And based on the article, Pat Brown, who actually won the election, credited that article with turning the tide of the election. So I kind of knew that loans were a way to get money to somebody without maybe making it abundantly clear. So when I found out about all these loans going on in San Bernardino court, I had at that time an active probate case in Riverside, and I thought I'd look at my judge. He was a commissioner named Michael McCoy, and his loan activity was just stunning. So I thought, well, maybe I'm going to ask some questions about this. So on a Friday, I faxed a letter into the presiding judge asking how was Michael McCoy paying back all these loans on a judge's salary. It didn't even seem possible to me. And on Monday, we had a hearing. The following Monday, we had a hearing, and Michael McCoy came into court a bit late. He was very sheepish, and he said that he was stepping down off the case. Wouldn't give any reasons why. He said another judge would be appointed. Thank you very much, and that was it. So the next judge that was appointed was named Sharon Waters, and I thought, well, I'm going to look at Sharon's loans, and it was equally as excessive as Michael McCoy. So at that point, I picked up the phone and I called the district attorney's office, and I said, I think we have money laundering going on in terms of Sharon Waters. Now, the DA investigator didn't want to he wouldn't take the complaint. But within 2 days, Sharon Waters stepped down off the case without ever even sitting on a hearing. So since that time, I've been intervening in some cases, doing this research for people and seeing what's happened. And what's happened is very interesting. We've had arrest warrants revoked. We had one person who was already arrested, who was immediately let out of jail. We've had judges recusing themselves right away from cases as soon as they are confronted with questions about their loan activity. In a case in Santa Cruz Court, we had a woman was being threatened with arrest if she didn't pay a trustee $30,000, and suddenly the arrest warrant went away, and so did the demand for the $30,000. So the response to this research has been redolent of guilt. So my feeling is that we've got to get as many people as possible knowing about the research methods and doing them. So this is what we're embarking on now. And as I was saying before we started recording, you guys are the first. You are the first seedlings. Okay, you are going to be the first ones learning how to do the research, and hopefully this understanding that we have judges who are wired, who are being paid off under the table to throw cases, and this is one of the ways they're being paid off. Hopefully this information will simply spread, and we'll get a whole lot of people knowing about this and doing the research and possibly reinstating justice in their cases too. This is the intent here. So I hope that you have pencils and paper ready. I'm going to have to, let's see, how do I do this here? I have to get onto my desktop for a second. And it's a little hard to do. I hope you bear with me because I really have not used these programs before. And here we are. Okay, I'm going to put up on the screen now here we go. Let's see, get to the desktop, and here we are. Okay, there are basically 10 essential steps to this research, and I'm going to leave this up on the screen. You should be seeing this now. And, let me just hit the share screen again. Sorry. Here we go. Could you guys put in the chat if you're actually seeing this? Could you let me know if this has come up? Okay, well, I'm not actually getting any chats right now. Okay, well, I hope it is. I hope it's up here. So, so basically, there are two types of documents that form the core of this research. And just so you know, I have you all on mute right now, and there will be an active question and answer session at the end. So if you have any questions, hold on to them. And when I unmute you, we can, all talk about that. Okay? So I hope you have pens and paper ready, because it would be great if you took notes here. So basically, there are two types of documents which are forming the core of the research method. Now, as you embark on the research deeper into it, you may very well needing to access other documents and other websites, but the core documents are basically two things: the financial disclosures of the judges, and then their mortgage records on the grantor-grantee indexes. Now, the first things, before we start on the documents, you're going to need to determine a few things about your judge. You'll need to determine the county that he lives in. You'll need to determine the name of his or her spouse, and also how many years the individual has been sitting on the bench. Now, if your judge was a member of the government legal system prior to ascending to the bench, for example, if he was a prosecutor, you're going to need to extend the research to include the period of time that he was a prosecutor, because we have found that the prosecutors, some of them are also involved in this mortgage scam. So the first document you're going to need to acquire is the judge's mandated financial disclosure form, which is usually available. Different states have different depositories for this. For example, in California, it's the Fair Political Practices Commission. In Ohio, it's the Supreme Court. But there will be a state body that is mandated to have these records, and you will need to contact them and ask for the disclosures for the judge's full tenure on the bench. And if he was also perhaps a prosecutor before that, you'll want to go back for that period too. So you'll have to know the years that he has been involved in government justice, okay? Government justice. So you can contact the agencies via email and make a Public Records Act request. You don't have to be media to do this. You just cite, the pursuant to the Pennsylvania or the California or the New Mexico Public Records Act request, you are requesting these mandated financial disclosures. Now, basically, you're not going to get a lot of revelations in these documents. This is not going to air. I love their that is going to be useful. For example, recently I was researching Judge Leonard Holtzappel, who is in Ohio, and I noted that his financial disclosures included a business interest in a company, which he named. So I was curious, and I went to the Secretary of State's website to find out what I could about that business. And that's corporate license invoked 5 or 6 years ago. Now, that's a problem, right? So it's the problem for Staffel, okay? And what we're looking at, we're trying to find where are the problems. Where have these judges done things that look like financial shady practices, and making money off of a corporation which doesn't have a license is a concern. Okay, so that's one reason that we have to look at the financial disclosures. And another reason is, like, for example, a judge might list an LLC that he has some sort of involvement with. So you'll want to get the names of the partners to the LLC. And after you've gotten the names of the partners, you'll need to check to see if your judge ever heard any of the cases involving his partners. And if he did he disclose that he had a financial relationship with them? And we're finding many instances where judges simply don't disclose this. So another thing you need to look for on the financial disclosures is whether the judge is disclosing any loans on property other than his primary residence. Now, it does seem that most of the states now have laws on the books which give the judge a waiver from disclosing loans on his primary residence, but maybe not a waiver on disclosing loans on other properties. So you'll want to see if he has actually disclosed loans, because you will be finding out about them later when you go to the grantor grantee indexes. So, for example, he may have rental property, and you'll want to find out if the rental property has loans on it, did he disclose them? Okay. So, here we go here. Oh, one last thing, financial disclosure forms is they generally have a box where a judge can check and say that he has nothing to disclose. He has no investments. He has no other business interests. Now, generally speaking, an individual who's making over $150,000 a year does have some investments. So if your judge has checked the box saying that he has nothing to disclose, you can be fairly certain that your judge is a scofflaw and simply has no regard whatsoever for the mandate that he make disclosures, because people who are making that amount of money generally do have investments. So if he's checked nothing to disclose, you might understand right away that you're dealing with somebody who doesn't give a damn about what the law mandates he does. So, right. So before we start talking about the grantor grantee indexes and the loans, I want to suggest that you also run your judge's name through his county court records as well as other nearby counties to see if he has ever, been party to a case. Recently, I was looking at a magistrate in Arizona, and I looked at some of the court records, ran his name through, and it came out that magistrate, who was the head of the family court magistrates in that jurisdiction, was actually a deadbeat dad. So he wasn't even paying his own child support, and there had been cases filed against him concerning this. So this revelation is important. If you're researching your judge and you want to see, what he is doing financially that may raise questions about his, shall we say, suitability for passing judgment on other people. So, one last thing before we start talking about the grantor grantee index is you're going to need to find the name of your judge's spouse. And this is important because we now have many judges who are trying to hide their property. And what we're going to be looking at on the grantor grantee index is property loans, okay? And we have judges now who are trying to obscure their ownership of property. For example, there's a judge named Ron Christensen who was sitting in San Bernardino court, and I found that he had changed the registration of his property from his name to the name of property owners. So you would never be able to find Ron Christensen's property if you searched under Ron Christensen. And who would ever think of searching under property owners? And another indication of the eagerness of judges to hide their property and very possibly their loan activity was provided to me by a private investigator when we were discussing this loan scam. And he told me that he had judges coming to him asking how to hide their property ownership. And the PI had told me that he was recommending that they put some kind of symbol before their name. For example, if you have the name John Smith, you put it under hashtag John Smith. So if you run a search for John Smith, unless you have the hashtag first, John Smith isn't going to come up. So these, or you put a number 1 before, or a question mark. So these are ways to obscure the search done on the grantor-grantee index for the parties and their loans. So it's kind of sneaky, but as we know, we're dealing with sneaky people. Okay, now let's see. Oh, there's another reason that it would be good to search for your judge's spouse, because there are potential conflicts of interest. For example, it's not uncommon to have a judge whose wife is an attorney. Possibly she might be an attorney with the county council. So has she appeared before her husband in cases? These are things that you're going to want to research and to know about. Okay, now let me just go here for a second to see if I can find this here. I'm going to want to share another document here. Let's see. Okay. Let's see if we can get this shared now. I hope you're all seeing this. Sure that you're seeing it. Okay, so basically we have up on the screen now the 4 things that you need to check on financial disclosures. And so basically, I hope you can take notes here. These are the kinds of things you're going to want to check on. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and spend some time now on loans. Now, mortgages and loans will be found with the county recorder's office, and this is generally the grantor-grantee index. So all counties maintain a grantor-grantee index. Most counties have these records online. If you're dealing with okay, let me see here. I've got somebody raising their hand. Hold on just one second. Let me finish this thought and see if I can access that. Some rural counties don't have these records online. So you will have to physically go into the recorder's office to do the search. However, the larger counties now have the records online, and you can basically do the search online. Okay, let me see if I can what I can do here in terms of accessing some of this stuff here. Okay, let me see. Looks like I have. You can't see anything? Okay, documents on, okay, you're not getting the screen share. Oh, that's a shame. Actually, the documents, yeah, Marky, the documents have been opened on my computer. Let's see what I can do here. Okay, now I'm hearing that the screen share is working fine from Marky. Okay, I'm hoping that that's so, because otherwise, okay, the docs aren't showing up. Let's see, let me stop the share. Let's see if we can do this here. Share screen, let's see. No, I don't think this is working. So let me try again. Stop share. let me know. Can you see this now? Please send me a chat or something. Let me know if you can see this. Okay. I've got this. Okay, these are the 4 things that you're going to need from, I'm sorry about this, this is sort of new technology for me. So, these are the 4 things that you're going to need. Check on for the financial disclosures. And I'll go ahead and put up, apparently the first document didn't share appropriately, and I'll put that up in a moment, because those are the 10 essential steps that you'll need in order to do this research. And I'm going to go ahead and put that up now, because that is important. So just one moment here. And okay, let's see. Nope, let's see. Try one more time. Share screen. For some reason, I'm not able to share the screen with the 10 essential steps. Let me just see here. Possible to do. Here we go. Okay, you should have this up now. The 10 essential steps. I hope you do. Let me just see on the chat box whether you've got this up or not. I had it 3 times. Okay. So is it there now? It's not there now. Click the doc. Well, it is clicked. That's up on my screen. So let's see if I can... Okay, see it now. Okay, great. Okay. Yeah, like I said, this is a work in process, and I appreciate your patience with me. Okay. So these are the 10 essential steps that we need to do this sort of research. So you should be seeing this now. Now, what I want to do is to go to a simple page for a grant or grantee index, and I'm not sure if that's something I'm going to be able to do either, but I'm going to try. Okay, so let's just hold this thought for a second, and we're going to, from Jason to everyone, wait. Okay, what, Jason? Tell me. What should I wait on? Okay, give us time to write this down. Okay, absolutely. I'm going to give you time to write this down. So, in a moment, then, we're going to go to a sample page from a county grant or grantee index. And we're going to, you're going to follow as we, everybody, I will send you the docs. When this is all over, I'll send you these so you'll have them hard copy. So I'd like to go ahead now and try to do try to do the search on the grantor grantee index. So let's see if we can do this. Okay. Let's try to minimize here for a second. And okay, we're going to go here to, let's see. Now, let's see, share screen. I'm going to go to desktop. Nope, can't do that. Let's see now. I'm going to go here to Safari. Go to, see if this is going to work. And you'll let me know if it does or not. Now, would you let me know what's up on the screen now, please? Let's see if I can do this as a new share. New share. Okay, great. You've got okay, we've got the recorder's office now. This is the San Bernardino County Recorder Clerk. And we're going to do a search right now for a judge. Okay, so you can see how to do this. This is what the San Bernardino Recorder's Office site looks like. So over on the left, it says search, obtain public official records. So we're going to double click on that. What should come up is a search page. So we're going to click on name. Okay, we have the name of the chief probate judge who has replaced Michael Welch in San Bernardino County. And we click on this. Okay, now name. They want the last name first. So his name is Kyle Brody. And he's making the same kind of interesting decisions that Michael Welch was making. So we're going to go Brody, Kyle. Okay, and we have it's already been clicked, the grantor or grantee. Okay, so we're going to search by name, and you can see here that the date range is from 1958 to 2017. So we don't have to put in here which dates that Kyle Brody was sitting on the bench, because he sure wasn't sitting on the bench in 58. So we're going to go ahead. Actually, he ascended to the bench, I believe, in 2006. He was appointed by Arnold Schwarzenegger. So we're searching. Now, we have a bunch of Brodys that come up. One is Kyle. You can see the top search is Kyle Brody, and the second one is Kyle S. Brody. And as it turns out, Judge Brody's middle initial is S. So we can search on both. We're going to click first on Kyle Brody. Okay, now what we have is here a page that has several deeds of trust. It has 1, 2, 3 reconveyances. As you should know, these reconveyances are when they pay back the loans. So that's for Kyle Brody. That's what we have. But we want to make sure we got them all. Okay, so we're going to go back here, and we're just going to go back a page and look at Kyle. So we've got 3 reconveyances and a whole bunch of deeds of trust. So we're going to go back, and we're going to click on Kyle S. Brody. Okay? And, oh my gosh, we've got even more, huh? So, in fact, we've got looks like a couple pages worth. We've got 1, 2, 3 reconveyances. Go to the next pen. We've got a couple more reconveyances. Now, I already actually did the research on Kyle Brody here, and one of the reasons I chose him is he has a kind of unusual name, so we're fairly sure that that this is the judge. I mean, if you get somebody whose name is like, say, David Mitchell or John Smith, you're going to have to be really careful, make sure that you're getting the right guy. Okay, but with Kyle Brody, we got the right guy. So when I did the research on Kyle Brody before the webinar, I discovered that since he ascended to the bench, he has reconveyed 6 loans. Prior to ascending to the bench, he only reconveyed 1. So it looks like he's gotten very active with mortgages since ascending to the bench. Now, another thing that I wanted to do here with Kyle Brody, because we want to search the spouse's name as well. So in order to find out the spouse, sometimes it helps just to put in Judge Kyle Brody married to or Judge Kyle Brody wife. Sometimes it'll come up like that. Sometimes it won't. In this case, you can look for, if it doesn't come up right away, you can put in Kyle Brody bio. Sometimes it'll come up that way. In the case of Kyle Brody, it was a little harder to find. In his bio, it stated that he was married to an attorney who worked with the Attorney General's office. So I did a little further research and I found her. So her name here, I'm going to look at her, her name is actually Annalee Nations Brody, which is, again, an unusual name. We only really do have one. Let's go back here. Brody. Annalee Nations. Okay. And we're going to search for her too. Annalee Nations Brody. Now, when you do the wife search, of course, you're going to have to kind of cross-check. So here we have a bunch of records where Kyle Brody's name is also on the document, so you don't want to double dip. You don't want to, list 2 loans that are actually one, so you will have to check the document numbers. And as I said, I already did the research on the Brodys, and he has reconveyed 6 loans since he has been in office as a judge, and only 1 in the years before that. It's questionable. Now, in many counties, you can click here on the document number, okay? And you're going to find out everything you need to know in many counties about this document, because the document will be online. In the case of the Brodys, it's not online. As you can see, it says not authorized. Won't tell you what book and page. It will tell you the parcel number and the document number. So armed with the document number, can go into the recorder's office physically and look up the document. It's not available online. He's hidden it. He's apparently made the request that it not be put online, but you can find it by going into the recorder's office. Now, this brings up a very important issue, and this is also one of the reasons that I chose Kyle Brody to research because publicly here during the webinar, because the fact is, when you find the address, and you can possibly find it through the parcel number, you can see here parcel number, that will be on the county auditor's website, and you will be able to find out the address of the parcel number, since you cannot obviously find it on the San Bernardino County Recorder Clerk's office. However, should you find the address, you need to know that you are not under any circumstances to make this public. You are not to when you get ready to contact the judge to, ask him some questions about his, amazingly active loan history and maybe other things you found out, you do not put that address in the email. You do not make it public. There are laws against doing this. And you do not want to get yourself in trouble. It's fine to do the research. It's fine to get the documents. Do not disseminate this information. Recently, we had an activist in Northern California who was actually arrested and brought to trial for putting the address of this, in this case it was a police officer, into an email which was sent to some members of the press, including me, and also some attorneys. And he has been found guilty, and it has gotten jail time for this. Do not make this public. You can contact the judge and refer to document numbers, but you do not want to make the information of the physical address public in any means. No emails, no postings, nothing. This is very important. Now, Brian Harris had asked if this works on small hick counties in rural Georgia. In small hick counties, very often the records are not online. The recorder clerk will have a public website, but you will have to go in physically to the recorder's office in order to look at the documents. But they will have them because this is what the county's recorder clerks do. They basically record property transactions, they record loans, they record when they're paid back. Now, let me go back here for a second. Let me see where we are here. So at this point, I can't make any public assumptions about Kyle Brody's transaction history. What I can say is that he sure has been reconveying a lot since he became a judge. He's been taking out a lot of loans and paying them back. We would have to see the physical documents to come to some sort of conclusion. For example, let's say these loans are for $20,000, maybe not so much, okay? So in that case, you've got question marks. However, in some cases, in many cases, in fact, in most cases, because it looks like between 65 and 75% of the judges I've checked have questionable loan histories. That's the lion's share of them. So in most cases, reasonable questions can be raised about the loan history. Now, I went ahead and sent out to the participants before the meeting the article that was published recently on Leonard Holtzaffel. He is a retired judge in Ohio who has been making extremely unusual decisions on the John Rohr case, which is a psychiatric confinement case. And based on the fact that Holtzaffel appeared not to be following the law, not to be following the Constitution of Ohio, not to be paying attention to filings by Rohr's attorneys, I was working with Catherine Hine, and we decided to really take a good hard look at Leonard Holtzaffel's loan history. And I sent you all, I do believe, I hope you got it, before the webinar, the article, because when we're talking about, shall we say, questionable or suspicious loan history, I think Leonard Holtzaffel is like a kid in a candy store, okay? You can see here that he has, from ascending, well, prior to ascending to the bench, he didn't seem to have much going on in terms of loans at all. But he got to be a judge, and right away, the loan activity started. He ascended to the bench in '93, and from that point, the loans became regular and cyclical. And they were happening so quickly. For example, in 1996 alone, he took out loans totaling $450,000. $45,000 while these loans were still pending. They were still active. In 1998, he took out more loans, totaling $367,000. In 1999, he took out three more loans, almost $200,000 there. It was $199,000. And he would pay back a loan and then immediately take out another one. But in some cases, he would be taking out loans before he even paid loans back. I mean, there was just so much activity, it made you dizzy. So when Leonard Holstaffel was confronted with his research, he recused himself from the John Rohr case. So we then got another judge on the John Rohr case who we are now researching. And based on the seemingly relentless vendetta that Ross County seems to have concerning the Rohr case, John Rohr was in his 20s when he was arrested. And he was arrested. John Rohr was, he was a 20-something, and he'd gotten high, and he walked into the wrong house. Okay, he was loaded, and it was some sort of hallucinogen, not a hard drug, right? So he was arrested and charged with trespassing, and he pled not guilty by reason of insanity, and he was found not guilty by reason of insanity and put into a psychiatric hospital, and that was, I believe, 9 years ago, and they won't let him out. Now, Rohr, according to independent evaluations and actually according to a lot of the records that are being maintained by the hospital, which now appears to be his permanent residence, he doesn't appear to have any evidence of psychiatric disability. So the question is, why won't they let him go? And there is a lot more going on with that family. There seems to be a vendetta against that family, which I don't want to go into right at this point. But the fact is that even with massive evidence that John Rohr is just fine, the system doesn't want to let him go. So a new judge was appointed after Holstaffel stepped down. His name was Linton Lewis, and it was immediately shall we say, broadcast to Ross County that we were going to be researching Linton Lewis. Linton Lewis stepped down from the case without ever even hearing any. He didn't sit on any hearings, okay? So now there's another judge, and who appears to be a little more, a little less of a wimp, a little more of a pit bull here. So we're not only researching him, we are now researching the prosecutor that is going after John Rohr with such furor for all these years, and we're also looking now at the Supreme Court Justice, Chief Justice of Ohio, who's Maureen O'Connor, and the investigation is not complete, but I will say at this point in time that we have gotten enough information concerning the prosecutor to potentially, possibly have him removed from office. And so this sort of research appears to certainly be shaking up the apple cart. And what we really want to do is overturn the apple cart, because the apple cart isn't obeying the laws. Okay. Now, somebody asked here, who's paying the loans? How does this work? Gosh, if I know, okay? We have a system in place. We have a trough at which public officials, certainly judges, certainly some prosecutors, can feed on, okay? You need some money, go to the trough and drink, okay? Now the question is are the banks forgiving the loans? Is there a general fund which is there for the judges and others to access? What we're really going to need eventually, at some point in time, is to get an activist attorney who has some kahunas. I'm here in Mexico, and we call them huevos, right? To actually file a federal lawsuit claiming that the majority of judges are funneling illegal monies through their home loans. We're going to need to do that in order to subpoena the records and see who's paying back the loans. What we have now is an indication that there's a system in place. This is not casual corruption. When Brian Mulroney received a big fat envelope full of cash, he was the prime minister that we discussed earlier in Canada, who got a big fat envelope full of cash and was caught doing it. That was casual corruption. Here in Mexico, where I live, if a police officer stops you, makes a traffic stop, and you throw 100 pesos at him, that's casual corruption, okay? But what we're talking about here is a system in place. And this is the system which enables public officials when they feel the itch or the need to go and drink at the trough. So what we're really going to need eventually is an absolute confrontation with the system about this. And as I mentioned before, you guys are the seedlings. I started the research. Catherine Hine then is also now doing the research. But obviously, there is something very nefarious going on here with using property loans to funnel payments under the table. And more people need to start accessing the research and start confronting the legal system about this. You guys are the first crop, okay? So he says, then why are they taking out all the loans? Somebody said to me, they're taking out the loans because this is free money. Hey, you were a good kid, you know, good little golem. You went and screwed all these people up for us. Here, have some money. That's why they're taking out the loans, because they're not paying them back. If the loans are being forgiven by the banks, if there is a general fund for bribing and paying off public officials because they were obedient functionaries of the state, whichever it is, there's something going on here that is absolutely becoming obvious to be illegal. So that's what I'm saying here. Yeah, I know about the CAFR accounts, and this is something a little bit different. So anyway, okay, wait a minute here. Let me just catch up here with where I was. Oh, there's one other thing that may come up on the grantor-grantee indexes, and it did not come up here with Kyle Brody, but it has come up with a number of judges, and that is a number of judges have federal tax liens against them, so they aren't even paying their taxes. Okay? Now, we had spoken earlier about this magistrate in Arizona who was a head of family court, who was a deadbeat dad. We have other honorable so-and-sos who aren't even paying their income taxes. This is all important information for you to garner when you start researching your judge to find out how bad he is, okay? So, one moment here, and let me catch up with myself. Oh, yes, Brian, you made a very good point here. If a federal lawsuit is filed by an attorney with waivos, wouldn't it be difficult to find a judge willing to issue such a subpoena that I mentioned? You got that right, okay? Which is why it's so important that this research and the results of this research starts getting done massively, so that more and more articles are appearing about not only Leonard Holtzaffel, not only Michael Welch, but this judge here in Pennsylvania, that judge there in New Mexico, that one there in Oregon. We need to bring this matter into public attention so that more and more people realize that we do not have a functional justice system. We have judicial hitmen who have been paid off under the table to deny us our rights. So at some point in time, I am confident that this will become such a matter of common knowledge that a lawsuit, when filed, will get the, shall we say, the attention that it deserves. Okay? This is where we're going here. You know, we are involved in attempting here to reinstate justice in a system where there is no justice. And It is not done through filing petitions. It is not done through, requesting that the Judicial Council investigate your judge, because those are judges too. The system cannot police itself. We will be policing the judges by doing this kind of research and then making it public and sharing it. Someone wants to know how to get their home address. We've been talking about this. Grantor grantee indexes, document numbers, parcel numbers, like what's up on the screen. This is how you do it, okay? Because they're not published, of course. So there's actually, I think, one more level. Let me go back here to another screen, if I can. Okay. Nope, can't do that. Well, I'm going to have to email you guys. We were going to go back to the screen with the 10 essential things that you have to research, and we're now on number 10. And this is a matter that was, I believe, first uncovered by attorney Richard Phalen in California. Many of you may know the saga of Richard Phalen. He determined that the judges in California who are state court employees were getting special benefits from the county, but they were not recusing themselves when they were hearing cases in which the county was a party to the case. And that, as we know, is a clear conflict of interest. So this was first uncovered, to my knowledge, by Richard Phalen. So when you are looking at your judge will be a state employee, right? And you'll need to find out if he is also getting kickbacks from the county in some form, and those will most likely be found from the county auditor. Now, I did skip over one thing here, and I apologize for that, and that is the telephone records. Okay, this is the final potential public record that might prove, shall we say, important for us to retrieve. Now, a lot of us are concerned that our judges are having ex parte communications with somebody in our case, because, why are they always making the decision for that side, even when that side has no evidence even to support its claim? So telephone records may show where your judge is talking to the attorney for the other side. These telephone records should also be a matter of public record. So recently, I had mentioned that we're looking at this prosecutor in Ross County. So recently, a Public Records Act request was made to the Ross County Prosecutor's Office for the phone records. And this was a fishing expedition. I had not done this before, but it did appear to me, this was Catherine Hines' idea, actually, and it appeared to me this is a really good thing to look at, because if there are phone calls from the judge to the prosecutor, or to somebody else involved in the case, one would have to question if the judge has basically violated, again, his necessity of remaining an honorable so-and-so, right? So I got the response back from the Ross County Prosecutor's Office. Okay, here's our phone bill. Well, the phone bill, it was a flat fee phone bill, and so there was no metadata. It didn't list the calls, and it was very frustrating. So eventually the auditor's office was contacted to see what kinds of monies they were paying the prosecutor, and guess what? Up showed where they were paying actually for a cell phone for the prosecutor, but the prosecutor failed to disclose that. Okay, we had asked for the phone records. He says, "Oh, there's only this one bill, and it's a flat fee, so you can't see any metadata." Ha ha ha! But he forgot to tell us about the cell phone. Okay, so once again, what we've created here, what we have found here, is the appearance of an attempted cover-up. So that would be another level of documents that you would want to look at. Now, I'm going to take a look here at the chat box and see what's going on. Okay. Yeah. One moment, please. I'm just looking here. County appraisers, yeah, county appraiser, the auditor's office, right. Okay, somebody wants to have SR. Not sure who SR is, but somebody wants to pay someone to do the research. Well, what I'm trying to do with the webinar is teach you guys how to do the research, okay? Because we need to have people just doing this research everywhere. We just need everybody to know about this and how to research a judge and find out how much criminal activity, financial activity, money laundering, etc. he's involved in. That being said, I am available to do this research for clients. So please contact me individually about that, okay? One thing I cannot do is I cannot be paid for writing an article. That's a violation of journalistic ethics. As an investigator, I'd be happy to do, some investigations. You'll need to find another reporter then to write the article because I cannot. That is a conflict of interest for me, and I can't do that. So, all right. Let me just see. There's a couple more messages here. Yeah, look for the wife's name too, says Jason. And, okay. Okay, Brian wants to know, how do you catch it if crooked judges are using burner phones? Well, you probably can't catch it, okay? One of the things that has become apparent to me through this research, though, is that members of the legal system, the government legal system, have gotten emboldened by the failure of the press to adequately watchdog their activities. So they're getting kind of sloppy here. Okay, the loan records, that's sloppy. If you find a judge like Holdsapple who's been, feasting like what did I say? A hyperactive kid in a Willy Wonka chocolate factory on the loans, it's because he's sloppy, because he doesn't think he's going to get caught, because he knows that the media has been subdued. So, the good news is that not all the media has been subdued. I have written these articles. Catherine Hine, who's retired attorney and now doing radio shows and also articles, she hasn't been subdued. A lot of the reporters for Activist Post have not been subdued. So we still have some journalists left with huevos. So the fact is, if they're using burner phones, or if they're hiding their property by putting a hashtag or a couple numbers before their names, it's going to be really hard to find this, okay? So I think we've got a window here because, like I said, the lion's share of judges that I've looked at have had a problematic profile in terms of their loan history. And we need now to go out there and we need to find them and we need to make this public. So, yeah, exactly, Medea. They pretty much think they're immune from all criminal activity because no one ever digs into their business. And that is absolutely correct. So it is up to us to dig into their business and to make this public. Okay, let me see. Phone records, Tila. You get the phone records, I believe, generally by going to the county auditor's office and making a Public Records Act request. Okay, that, or you can make them, for example, if you're looking at a prosecutor, you can make the Public Records Act request to the prosecutor's office. So you go to the office where the records, you go to the entity who is making the phone calls that you want to see, and you make the Public Records Act request, as long as they're government. Private people, you can't get their records that way. So, okay. I've got something from Jane here. What if you don't know the wife's name or where they live? Well, okay. Well, I think we were kind of discussing some of this earlier. First of all, you have to find a bio of the judge. It very often will mention the wife's name. You have to look on the grantor-grantee index for the judge himself in order to find out what are the document numbers, what is the parcel number, and that's the way that you find out where they live, okay? Here we go here. Let's see. Raisin and cereal, funny. Okay. Okay, Sharif. Yeah, you can contact me via email, Sharif. If you'd like me to do some research for you, I would be happy to. Oh, yes, if the judge is also a commissioner. This is from, I believe, Fabulous, okay? If the judge is also a commissioner, he would also have to make he would have to make mandated financial disclosures to the state, and he would also, if he has property, you could also find him on the grantor-grantee index. It's basically the same sort of process, whether he's a commissioner or whether he's a judge. And let's see here. So Medea wants to know how to get the judges like the ones in Lucerne County. So the judges in Lucerne County, I think they were gotten, when it was found that they had an interest in the group homes and the detention facilities. And that is another level, of course, of dirt that can be dug up. Recently, I did a search on a Riverside County judge and found that he had a financial interest in a cemetery. So, I didn't go as far. This was a probate court judge, and we know what happens to people under guardianship. They die very quickly. I did not do the check to see if they were actually buried in the cemetery that he had a financial interest in. I mean, this gets very ghoulish, but this kind of research actually can be done. So let me see here. I'm going to unmute. For the parcel number, you can get the address from the county appraiser. That's correct, Jason. Absolutely. So I'm going to unmute people now. You got to give me a second here because I got to figure out how to do this. And let's see if I go here. Okay, I'm going to stop share. See if okay. How do I I think this is how I unmute people. Nope, that is not how I unmute people. Let's try again. Okay, I think I'm going to unmute you guys now. Okay, so we can talk a little bit. Have any questions? You want to talk this over? We can all talk. Okay, is that good? Okay, it's good. All right, you're all unmuted. Okay, hi. Does anyone have a question? There's a screeching noise. What is the screeching? Does somebody have something going on in the background? There's a screeching noise.
If I may?
Okay, hi.
Hi, Janet, this is Liz. That feedback you're hearing may be as a result of speakers being used rather than headphones.
Okay. Speakers instead of headphones, possibly, huh? Okay, so if somebody is using speakers, could you mute them and go to your headphones? Okay. This sounds a little better. All right, does someone have a question? Is there something that we can talk about concerning the research now? Because I think that's sort of to the end of my presentation here.
This has all been fantastic. I just want to make sure you send us your sheet because I couldn't write that fast.
I'm sorry, give me that again? You want me to send you something?
I want to make sure you're going to send us your sheets that weren't up very long. because I couldn't write fast enough to get all the information.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will have this. I will have those. There were basically two sheets that came up. There was the 4 things to check on the financial disclosures, and then the 10 basic essential steps for doing this search. And I will email those 2 sheets to all of the participants. Okay?
Thank you.
If I may?
Well, thank you. Yeah. I'm sorry?
Will we be able to access the recorded version of this training so we can review it? Or no?
Yeah. Yeah. You will be able to. I'm recording, and when the recording is done, anyone who wants it, ask me, and I'll email it.
That'd be great, because it's easier to stop and start to take notes than to try to keep up.
Right.
Okay, I yield.
Gotcha. Okay.
Janet, can I ask you a question? I see you're living in Mexico, and I worry. I've stopped posting on my website because I don't want the judges and attorneys involved to know everything I'm doing. But I would love to make more information public. How dangerous is it? We need to worry about this.
Looks like there's a call coming in here. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. Okay, concerning retaliation, this is something that people really need to think about, because we have a system in place which is very well protected and which also has a security force. That security force, of course, is the police. So I would like people to be smart. Now, when I earlier insisted that none of the judges' addresses or anybody else that you're researching, none of the physical addresses be made public, that was a matter for your own safety and security. The fact is, I can't predict what may happen to individuals who do this research, but I can predict what will happen if we don't do the research. And what will happen is that the Nazi sort of oppressive and brutal sorts of behavior that we have seen already happening in our court proceedings will only continue. I'm sorry? I didn't hear that. Is somebody there?
Yeah.
No, it's other people.
I really can't hear you. Could you speak up?
Hi, Janet. Can I ask a quick question?
Oh, sure. Yep.
This is Sharif. I asked earlier what's the best way to contact you, but I think your voice was not clear. What did you say? Was it email is better, phone?
Email is fine. And
Okay.
phone is okay too. Right now, there appears to have been some sort of something's happened to my voicemail, so I'm not getting voicemails right now. But I'm going to be fixing that within the next 24 hours, hopefully. So probably either way would be fine to contact me.
Okay, and I have a couple of emails for you, so either one is fine.
The Janet_C_Phalen is the one to use. The other one do not use, please.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay. Wondering if there's any further questions, or are we ready to wrap up here?
Yes, I have one quick question.
Sure.
Okay, I have a conflict of interest with the chief judge. Let's see here. I probably can't say the name on the phone, right?
I don't. Let's just leave him out of the. Just talk about the conflict. If there's an issue that you want to.
Okay, the conflict is I have an attorney. I sued a company out of Des Moines, Iowa. The judge is out of Iowa. Now, I found out that the judge, I looked up under his investment, I found that out. He has some of the material that he has is also with the company that I have a claim against or class action, and it was denied. It was a class action lawsuit way back, and we went in on 2012, and the judge denied it in the 13th of June this last year. And I flew to Chicago, and they have, I think, 2 attorneys for this insurance company. And what I'm saying, I found out now that the judge has money in the same company that I sued.
Well, that's a major revelation, and it's very important that you found that, because there's a clear conflict of interest, and the judge should have recused himself. And what I would do in your situation, I'm not a lawyer, okay? I can't really give legal advice. I'm just a journalist, right? But what I would do in your situation is I'd start looking at everything I could find about that judge. I would look at his property record. I would amass a file on that judge that you could then, basically get a reporter to write an article and get this published, because it sounds to me like your judge is a scofflaw. Okay, that's what I would do.
Okay, now can I email you some info that I have or not, ma'am?
You can email me whatever you like. And I'm not an attorney, and I can't give legal advice. I have in my contacts some attorneys who might, be willing to advise you on. I cannot do so. But clearly, if a judge has a financial investment in a company and he's hearing a case involving the company, that's a big no-no. I mean,
okay, I do have an attorney. The attorney is out of Chicago.
Okay.
Now, it's been sitting on it for so many years. I think it started in 2012, and it's been sitting on it for 3 years. And now, when he denied it, it's been sitting on it since June of last year. And all my attorney says, just sit and wait. Well, I went online and found out. I went under, I got his disclosure, and what I'm reading right in front of me, he has 3 different funds under the same name as the company that actually it's a huge investment company, and the name come up under which he has investments in, the one and the same.
Well, that's a very important disclosure, and you're to be congratulated for doing that research and finding it, because this is the kind of dirt that we're talking about here. And that's what you found, is important, okay?
Okay. Now,
I would
yeah,
go ahead.
Probably forward it to my attorney. Would that be correct, ma'am?
I certainly would forward it to your attorney.
That's
right. I certainly would.
Because it was sitting on it for so long. And unfortunately, it involves annuity. I don't know if you know, annuities are very bad for, seniors. And my wife and I have 3 different annuities. And unfortunately, I'm 80, my wife is 81. Now, when I looked at all the 3 different annuities, they also have death benefits, which are much lower than the money we put into the annuities. So I guess the judge, wait till they die, and then the company will come out smelling like a rose.
Okay. You're going to need to get this over to an attorney that you trust, that you believe is really acting in your best interest. And that, unfortunately, a lot of us have run into attorneys that are not, to get, a better input than I can give you here. Okay?
Okay, then thank you.
Okay.
But you do, Kay, but your gut feeling, my gut feeling is that I do have a conflict of interest.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The question is, what do you do once you find that conflict? Okay. And this is kind of what we're discussing here to some degree today. So, yes, I would get it over to your attorney, and I would also, do more research, find out as much as you can about the judge, and then get it published. That's what I would recommend.
Okay, then. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye. Bye now.
Okay. Do we have anybody else now? I'm going to stop the recording in a moment. And I wanted to thank you all for coming here. I just want to mention very quickly that I do have a book available. It's on thebookpatch.com. It is about, it's entitled Exile. Somebody mentioned earlier, gee, I see you're in Mexico. Is this dangerous? Well, some things are dangerous, yes. And the book is basically my personal story about what happened in court case and how this was basically ability to leave the country. And I'm sorry, somebody else talking at the same time? Sorry? Excuse me, let me finish here. So basically, if you're interested in the book, it's entitled Exile. It's on thebookpatch.com. So if there are no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And
you may have to mute everybody.
okay, we're no longer recording.
If you're going to talk, use your own microphone in the lower left corner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank all of you, really.
Thank you. That's this right here.
Okay. So I think we're done. Unless there are any more. Okay, if you're talking in the background, would you please mute your microphone? We're hearing people talking like in their houses. Would you mute it? Somebody's laughing. And we're all hearing you laugh, but it has nothing to do with the meeting. So could you please mute yourself? If there's no other further questions, I'm going to thank you all very much. And if you need any consultation, if you've got questions about this, just contact me. Okay? I'll see if I can get through it. All right? Okay. Thanks a lot.